What up, YouTube? What up, boys and girls? Yeah, this is Chef, New Zealand Murder History Podcast, and I got a pretty cool show for you guys today. Well, it's not a whole scripted podcast. In fact, it's mostly just me rambling. Yeah, we're going to be talking about some oddball characters that you would always see around the Wellington City Central Business District. So I'm going back, I guess, as late as the late 90s, but this is mostly sort of early 2000s up to 2010 kind of era. Yeah, some of these people I liked more than others. But anyway, let's run the intro. My show's not suitable for children. Kids, click off. And anyone suffering from PTSD, also click off and seek support from your GP or call one of the many 0800 numbers available. We'll be discussing homelessness, sex work, drug use, problem gambling, and suicide. In my show is just for educational purposes and not to cause offense to anybody. Alright, so one guy I remember very well. I heard he died. I don't know if that's accurate. His name was Mark, and we called him Mark the Bogan. Bogan's kind of like a word, sort of means like heavy metal kind of guy. He had long hair at the back. He had like a mullet, wore black sunglasses, and he always had a Death t-shirt, like the death metal band, but they were literally called Death. That's what they were called. Anyway, he was pretty cool. I didn't mind him. When we were kids, we used to get him to buy us alcohol, and he would get us a cask of wine, and I think we used to give him a drink from memory, and then he would go, and we'd go on our way, and he was always all right. I kind of liked Mark the Bogan. I thought he was cool. He always wore black jeans as well, and boots, but he was homeless. He was well dressed, especially for back then, but I think he used to stay at the night shelter, as I recall him telling me. Okay, what about the Maori lady in camouflage gear? Does anyone remember her? I don't know if she's still up there or what, but there was this Maori lady, and she would walk around dressed in like camouflage gear, and like sometimes she would even be wearing like an army helmet or like an army kind of utility belt looking thing. Yeah. Army boots and stuff like that. I never spoke to her. I didn't know her, but yeah, she was another lady that you would always see around. Alright, there was another bloke. People called him Blanket Man. I'm told his name was Ben Hunter. He was a pretty harmless kind of dude, and he would sit there in a blanket, and he would kind of rock. Well, sometimes he would sit still, I suppose, but other times he would sort of rock back and forth a bit, and he kind of talked like, I don't mean this to sound mean, but he kind of talked like one of those characters from the Muppets. He was sort of like, it was quite funny, and yeah, he would smoke weed out of this V can, like V, the drink V, and he'd like punch a couple of holes in it, and he'd be sitting there in the main road smoking it. It was really funny, and the cops never really hassled him. Maybe sometimes they did. I never seen them hassle him because it's like, what are you going to do? You can arrest him, but he doesn't really care. And then, yeah, when he died, people painted this big mural of him in Wellington sitting on the side of the road smoking out of his V-can. It was like this big bright green V-can that someone painted it. It was quite a well done little mural there on Cuba Street, as I recall. A little homage to the guy. Yeah, he was a Maori guy, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, other characters you'd see around. What about that little Scottish guy? And he always played that concertina, and he was like really depressed. You guys remember him? He had like rectangle. It was more like square glasses, but with like thick rim, sort of black rimmed glasses, and like he obviously had like quite bad eyesight because they magnify his eyes quite quite hardcore. And anyway, he was really short, and he had quite a red little face, and like he'd stand there looking really depressed playing the concertina. And if you rocked up and you chucked $2 in his hat or something, he'd be like, "Thank you very much indeed." He's like real happy. But yeah, I remember him. I used to sometimes I'd stop and have a yarn to him. He was always really depressing to talk to. He obviously had some problems on the go. Yeah, he wasn't a homeless cat. He was just it's just sort of a character you'd sort of see around the place. I don't really think he had many friends. Yeah, who else? Well, there's a bunch. One time I remember, stop me if I told this story before. Well, you can't stop me, it's YouTube. But one time I remember when I was walking up Cuba Street, and I was a kid this time, so I sort of remember this because it was kind of a bit shocking. But there was this dude huffing glue or something. He had this big glue bag or whatever he was huffing, I'm not sure. He was walking down one side of Cuba Street. This is about 9 o'clock at night or something like that. It's nighttime, but it's not really that late. And then walking across the other side of Cuba Street, this Maori dude was shouting at him from the other side of the street, and he was like, "You need Jesus! You need Jesus!" It's quite full on. Like, sometimes I tell stories like that down here in the South Island, and people are like, "What? What do you mean he was huffing glue?" And it's like, yeah, no, that's what people do. Up north. Well, some people, it's a thing. Solvent abuse. You see a bit of it around. Okay, what about Mike the Juggler? Do you guys remember him? He was cool. Again, I don't know him. I don't really know any of these people. Some of them I sort of knew, I guess, but not really. But anyway, Mike the Juggler, he was pretty cool. He was like this dude, Pākehā dude, and he had like a little beanie on, and he'd wear like a fairly tight fitting skivvy, and like he was always juggling. He was a really good juggler. He could juggle like 5 tennis balls at once, and he would stand there on the street juggling tennis balls, and you'd rock up and give him 50 cents or $2 or just whatever change you had in your pocket, I suppose. And yeah, he was always really nice. Anyway, he died. I seen it on the news. You guys remember that big fire up in Wellington, Loafers Lodge? Yeah, he was in there. It was the 16th of May this year, 2023. Yeah, sad one, eh? Side note, I actually used to live at Loafers Lodge. I wasn't there for very long, but I did live there for a few months in 2014. It wasn't very good accommodation, I'm going to be honest. There were a lot of problems there, but sometimes the best home is the home you've got. Okay, what about there was this Maori couple. I don't know if they're still up there or what. I haven't been up there for a few years, but do you guys remember there was this Maori couple, and they were like quite old, and there was like this little short ass dude, and there was this wife, and I think she was called Marie or something like that, and she was quite overweight. Anyway, they would beg for $2 coins in the street. Now, I'm told that they were problem gamblers. I don't really know that for a fact. It doesn't really matter, but as the story goes, anyway, you'd walk down the street, and I mean, the dude was harmless, but like he would often ask you for $2, not just me. He would literally ask every single person walking down the street who wasn't like a school kid or something for $2. It was like quite sometimes it was quite annoying because you'd be walking down the street and you'd be like walking, and like he'd kind of stand in your way a bit, and you'd sort of have to walk around him. And anyway, I don't know why I said this, but one time I had a go at him, and I was just in a really bad mood, I guess is why I did this. But I was walking down the street, and I was in a really bad mood, and I didn't really feel like talking to anyone. And then for some reason, I took offense to him asking me for $2. I mean, I've even given this guy $2 in the past, but I guess I just thought at the time, man, does he not remember me? I'm obviously not going to give. For whatever reason, I got annoyed with him, and I actually regret this. But anyway, I got annoyed with him, and I said, no, I'm not going to give you $2. You just gamble the money. And this dude flipped out. It's the only time I've ever seen him flip out, and he nutted out at me, and he was shouting, and he was like, I don't gamble! I don't gamble! And I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, man. I don't know why I said that. I'm really sorry. But by this point, he's just like shouting, I don't gamble! So I just bailed, because me standing there apologizing to him was just making it worse. So I was just like, oh man, I'm out of here. So I took off. But yeah, I don't think he was really very well. Like, I don't think he was quite with it. I'm not sure what problems he did have. I don't know. I could speculate all day, but he just wasn't quite with. He just wasn't really here. You know what I mean? He was only halfway here. He didn't really take in the whole picture of the world. He was just what can you say? He just wasn't really very well. But yeah, I kind of regret saying that to him. Never mind. What can you do? I liked him more than I liked his wife. For some reason, she was kind of rude. I didn't really like her. But, you know, they were harmless, truth be told. Anyway. Okay, what about Simon the Street Poet? Does anyone remember him? He was really cool. He was, like, pretty overweight. He had bipolar disorder. I only know this because I would stop and yarn to him. I quite liked talking to him for some reason. He was quite interesting. But he had bipolar disorder. He wasn't without accommodation. He wasn't homeless, but he was, you know, fairly he obviously didn't have a lot of money, and he would read poetry in the street, and if you gave him $2, he would read you a poem. And it was actually really cool because he would really get into the poem. Yeah, you felt like you got what you paid for your $2. It was quite interesting. And he had like a little book of poetry that he would write some poetry, and then he had other poems that he just liked that he'd written down, handwritten in his little notebook he had. Yeah, Simon the Street Poet. He was cool. I actually wrote down a poem. This was his favorite poem, because sometimes I'd give him $2 and he'd be like, what poem do you want to hear? And I'd be like, you read me just any poem, man. Just whatever poem you want to read it. And he'd always read the same one. He'd always pick the same one. And it was this one by Sam Hunt. And I've got it written down over here. Let's have a go. He'd really get into character, and he'd do the voice as well. I'm going to try to do the voice that he would do, but might not get it quite as good as him. Where is it? Over. Oh, here it is. It's called Main Trunk Country Road Song by Sam Hunt. And it goes, driving south and travelling not much over 50 kilometres per hour, I heard a possum, little man, I muttered, chopping down to second gear. I never meant you any harm. My friend with me, he himself, a man who loves such nights, said, possums, just a bloody pest. They're better off dead. He's right, of course. So settling back down, foot down hard, Owakuni Tangawai is often blinded by the single headlight of a passing goods train, as by any passing car. Let the midnight special shine an ever-loving light on me. They run a prison farm, somewhere round these ways. Men always on the run, these men who know such searchlight nights. Those wide shining eyes of that young possum, full beam back on mine, watching me run him over. Little man, I never meant you any harm. Yeah, so I used to quite enjoy talking to that guy. He was cool. But I heard one day he jumped off a building in central Wellington. And I would like to say that that's just hearsay, and I don't know that that's true, but I did actually never see him again, so quite likely. Yeah. He told me that his brother didn't accept him because of his mental illness, and that he yeah, his brother said, so I can't remember exactly what his brother said, but his brother said something along the lines of, oh, they should just lock that guy up and throw away the key. And he was like, he was quite effed up from what his brother said to him. It was like, I don't know if his brother said that to him, but whoever his brother said that to, it got back to him, and he, I don't know, like, he effed him up. It was something he talked about sometimes. I only really talked to this guy about, 6 or 7 times or something, but, I don't know, he was kind of cool. He was completely harmless anyway. I didn't mind Simon the Street part. Yeah, what else have I got here? Yeah, Wellington Street characters, random people you'd see around. There was that other guy, Simon, who played the guitar, and he would always play the theme song off the movie The Deer Hunter. And he had glasses, and he would just sort of sit there with a little hat and play the guitar, but he didn't sing, he just played the guitar. And he was called Simon too, and they kind of knew each other, but yeah, don't know if that guy's still around or what. Little Nick, there was that little Nick dude. I didn't really know him at all, but I would see him around. He was really little, and he had like a little leather jacket, and he was like quite friendly and stuff. Yeah, he drank a lot. Yeah, so those were some of the characters that I would see around Wellington City. But anyway, now we're going to read what I've got scripted here. So, what's this say? Yeah, Wellington gets crazy windy, and I remember walking down the street with some friends after this chick Casey's 21st birthday party. Shout out to Casey anyway. All right, I remember this. Okay, so check this out. So I'm walking down the street, and there's a scooter, and it's been blown over by the wind because it's a really, really windy night. It's like blowing scooters over, Like when I say scooter, I don't mean an electric scooter or something like that. I mean like an actual, like a small motorbike is called a scooter, you know what I mean? They're like 50cc, the kind of thing you'd ride with a helmet. Anyway, it's like been blown over and sitting on the street, and me and my friends were drunk after this 21st birthday, and for some reason we decided to pick the scooter up and just stand it back up again. We're like, I don't know, trying to be good Samaritans, or we're just kind of effing around. But anyway, the cops pulled up, and they're like, hey, what are you doing with that scooter? And I'm like, oh, hi, officer. We're just seeing the scooter have been blown over by the wind, so we're just picking it back up again. And the cop was quite satisfied with that. He's like, oh, yeah, sweet. And then he drove about, not far, like less than 50 meters down the road. And there was like a couple of boys that were walking down the street. And I remember because the kid he started talking to wasn't as eloquent, and when whatever the kid said, I can't remember, but the cops jumped out of the car, and then one of the dudes they were interested in, and the other dude they wasn't. And then this Maori kid, he goes to storm off down the street, like away from the cops, and he was like, nah, I don't want to come over here, officer. You can suck my dick. And he like said it real loud and confrontational, and this cop just ran and just rugby tackled this kid into the ground. It was pretty bad, because like, I don't know, I think they were probably about like 17 or something, or appeared to be about that age. I mean, he shouldn't have mouthed off, like it wasn't a good thing to say. And if he didn't say that, he wouldn't have got rugby tackled into the concrete. But it was a bit heavy-handed, And then they like, oh, we just sort of walked off in the opposite direction. We didn't want anything to do with it. But I think they arrested him and took him up in the cop car or something. I'm not really sure. It was bad, though. I remember seeing him, like, when we seen him get tackled, we were like, ooh, damn. Like, yeah. I remember when the sex industry was way more and more street-based than it is now, like in the early to mid-2000s. And there were certain streets where if you walked down that street certain times of night, you'd get propositioned by sex workers. Hey, honey, I'll suck your dick for $100. You know, stuff like that. I'm talking about Marion Street, plus the girls that would stand outside Real Groovy Records, corner of Abel Smith and Cuba Street. Yeah, and this one time when I was walking down the steep-ass street in Mount Victoria, you know, that one that connects to Courtney Place, and anyway, it was like 8 o'clock in the morning or something, and this guy's having an argument with his prostitute. And she was cute too. Nah, shut up! I've been a working girl for years, and I know how men operate, and I'm sick of it! Yeah, I had to chuckle at that one. But, yeah. So you would occasionally see some quite funny stuff like that. It was kind of entertaining. But fast forward a few years, and things aren't looking so good for me. In fact, I was struggling to get it together myself. I guess it was like 2012 or something. Anyway, I'm walking down Willis Street, unhappy, unshaven, and with a head full of problems and circling regrets. Anyway, I remember this nice Maori guy, about 24 years old, tall and slim, comes up to me, and he hands me a filter bag full of tobacco with a $5 note in it. I thanked him kindly, and me and him smoked a cigarette, as I smoked cigarettes back then. Anyway, I'm yarning to this Maori dude, and he's like, we're like talking for a while, and then he's like, yeah, I was like, oh, thanks for that tobacco, man, that was really cool. And he's like, yeah, sweet, bro. Now, don't worry, man, you'll get a place, bro. I reckon things are looking up for you. And I was like, what? No, I'm not homeless. Like, I was dressed quite shabby, you know what I mean? And he was like, no, look, you don't got to be shamed, bro. It's all good, bro. Yeah, but yeah, I actually wasn't homeless then. I did have a place, but I have had sort of short periods of my life here and there where I haven't had a place, and man, I tell you, it's not a good position to be in, eh? Like, you know, you sort of crash on people's couches, and then there's a lot of shame associated with that kind of stuff as well. Like, it's quite bad, yeah. Like, you sort of, you push things. You stay 2 nights here, you stay a night there, but then it's like, you know, you can't go back and stay the night because you just stayed 2 nights at this person's house. You might stay a night at a bus stop or something like that, and man, it gets difficult, eh? But I guess with severe homelessness, people sort of whenever I didn't have a place, I was always desperately trying to get one. Whether people people don't know anybody, especially if they're in a town they've never been in before. You know, you can get yourself into people just give up, I guess, and they're like, oh man, I don't have a place, and they accept that, and it becomes a chronic problem. But yeah, it was a thing up there. I remember seeing people. This is rare. You wouldn't see this very often, but I have seen people eating out of rubbish bins at the train station in Wellington, and yeah, I mean you get homelessness here in Nelson too. It was actually worse last year. They sort of cleaned it up a bit. I think they Nelson City Council ended up buying a backpackers, or so I'm told anyway. I don't know if this is accurate, but apparently they bought a backpackers, and then some of the street people are staying up there now, which is great. You know, anywhere off the street's good. It's not a safe option to stay on the street. What about that dude Carlos? And he like used to play. He had like 2 drumsticks, and he had like he would get like a big bottle, like what are those things called? I'm not using my words properly. Like a big square plastic bottle, the kind of thing you fill up with water. It's about, I don't know, 10 liters, and he'd play the drums on the bottle, and he'd like busk on the side of Courtney Place. Yeah. And had glasses and stuff. But yeah, I don't know, it's like, it's funny, like there's a lot of Yeah, there's a lot of shame associated with homelessness. It's not a good position to be in. I mean, I remember I was staying here in Nelson a long time ago, and I was staying with this chick up in Stoke, and I ended up pissing her off, and she kicked me out. And anyway, she wasn't my girlfriend or anything. We weren't seeing each other. I was just a friend of hers, and I was crashing at her place. And anyway, I stayed a few nights in this bus stop here in Nelson, up in the top of Rutherford Street. There, I was doing dishes at a hotel at the time, at the Rutherford Hotel it was, and I used to wake up at like early as in the morning, man, because it was cold. Like, you wake up real early, and I'd walk around trying to get warm, and then I'd go to work, and it was like it was real relief to go to work because I'd like go to work and it was warm, and there was like coffee and muffins and stuff. It was actually quite a good job thinking about it now. Well, they had good staff dinners and stuff, and that it was alright. It was a dishwashing job, it wasn't bad. Yeah, and then a friend of mine he gave me a job painting this old bus that he's doing up. He's done it up now. It's really nice the way he's done it up. It would have cost him a lot of money to do that, but anyway, he gave me a job where I was sanding the bus with a longboard. So a longboard is this sort of tool that you connect a big thing of sandpaper to, and you can sand it, and you get like a much better job than using a machine sander. It takes longer, but it's quicker than just having a sandpaper and a block, you know what I mean? But anyway, long story short, it's called a longboard, and you sand the side of the bus and then do spray on bog, and then sand it again, and then spray it again, and then you do that until it looked perfectly flat. And yeah, anyway, and I was staying in the bus as well as working on the bus in the day, so that was pretty cool actually, because I was just it was better than the bus stop anyway, put it that way. It was a upgrade from bus stop to bus, yeah. Yeah, so I did that for a while. Can't remember, 6 weeks or something. It took ages because he wanted a really good job done on this bus. It was like a classic Leyland Comet 1954 bus. But anyway, long story short, yeah. All right, that's it. That's my story time. Have a good one, everybody. See you later.